All right, so your main idea is regulation of the cell cycle. Our essential question or our key concept would be cell cycle regulation is necessary for healthy growth. And what we're going to go over is, just like in our society, there are rules and regulations, and there are things that we can and cannot do depending on our age, circumstance, in society, etc., etc. Well, the cell also has rules and regulations as far as division goes. We don't want our cells just dividing whenever they want to divide. We want them to divide when it's needed, okay, when things are needed for them to divide. All right, so the control mechanisms that facilitate cell division, there are two types that we're going to talk about. One type works from the outside, that being an external factor. And what it's going to do is it's going to kind of message or stimulate the internal factors. Okay, so by sending chemical signals in to say, hey, you know, there's enough cells, no more division is necessary. It's the growth factors which are proteins, as is a lot of the other important things in eukaryotic organisms. Proteins play a very important role in regulating the cell cycle also. So, as we see from this picture here, we have an illustration of normal cell growth. And what that shows us is that cells will not grow to an overcrowded situation. When they get to the point where there's not enough space, there are signals that say, hey, stop growing. That is a normal cell and a normal cell function. Now, you guys read about these proteins here that help in controlling these internal factors. Kinases, we know that's an enzyme because it was explained to you guys in chapter 2 that anything with ASE at the end of it is an enzyme, and enzymes are proteins, as well as cyclins. And these are the internal factors that help control cell regulation, cell cycles. So as it says there in the second bullet, it is the external factors that kind of get the internal factors to work and control the cell cycle. All right, this was one of the vocab words from last night, apoptosis, or programmed cell death. Now, when cells get to the certain point after they've divided and divided and divided, you know, they don't last forever. So this is a way that the body gets rid of those cells that no longer are useful for the body, okay? The other thing that this does is that it helps in the developmental process. So as things are changing and adapting from embryo to baby, things such as webbed fingers, webbed toes are being gotten rid of, okay? So the reason why you still don't have webbed fingers or webbed toes is because of this process of apoptosis, where the cells and the enzymes were getting rid of those cells that cause the webbing. Okay, that is again why you don't have it. No, it is not what you currently see in your fingers right now. There are some individuals, though, due to genetic disorders and things like that, or because this programming didn't occur, there are some individuals with webbed digits. All right, when cells go unchecked, when division happens uncontrolled, one of the things that can happen is cancer cells can develop, okay? So that's when cells divide without listening to any of the stuff that we've talked about earlier, okay? It's like an unruly child, rebellious teenager that does not follow instructions in their parents' home, okay? Just uncontrolled. Now what happens, okay, we have a normal cells here surrounded by a cancerous cell. Now, as long as that cell stays put, you catch it early, you can get rid of it easily, okay, or easier. Now, tumors develop, okay, there are two types of tumors. One is called a benign tumor, which is harmless. It stays located. If it originated in the skin cells, it stays in the skin cells. The other one is a malignant tumor. That is metastasized. It breaks away. It goes from where it originated to a place it does not belong, okay? Now, usually when that happens, it takes up the nutrients, the space, and things like that of other cells. So say, for example, it originated in the skin cell, then it breaks away and it goes to an intestinal cell, or a heart cell, or a brain cell. That's the problem. It is not supposed to be there. Okay? It is taking up the nutrients in the space of other cells. It's causing problems, and it keeps dividing and crowding and causing issues. Okay? So, if you catch that tumor initially, it's easier to eradicate than when it spreads throughout the body. That's a tougher task to eradicate. All right, guys, yesterday we left off here, okay, where we're discussing the regulation of the cell cycle. And we talked about how cancer cells kind of ignore the rules that other cells abide by. Remember, there are checklists. There's start and stop mechanisms, the cyclins, the growth factors. They all help control and regulate the cell cycle. So when a cell doesn't do that, and when it does not listen to the rules or it does not carry out the normal functions, that is a representation of what cancer is. And if we look at our illustration here, we see the normal cells represented with the clear or opaque color, and we see the cancerous growth cells represented by the red. And what we could look here and ascertain is that those cells, normal cells, stop growing. Cancerous cells will continue to grow because, again, they are ignoring the rules to say stop growing. Okay, anything that is known to cause cancer is called a carcinogen. It could be alcohol. It could be cigarette smoke. It could be too much solar radiation. It can be too much UV radiation. Okay, those are all things that can disrupt cell cycles and cause cancer, because there are hundreds of cell types, and so therefore there are hundreds of different cancers that are in our bodies. Okay, and this is an illustration of a cancerous growth. Okay, treatments include chemotherapy, but again, the problem with chemotherapy is that chemotherapy doesn't discriminate. It kills both healthy and diseased cells. Okay, which is why people tend to get ill when they're going through chemotherapy.